Today we have on a very special guest, Mr. John Reid. He is the Republican candidate for Lieutenant Governor and the former host of the WRVA Morning Show. Mr. Reid, how are you today?
I am great. So glad to be up early with you this morning.
Yeah, thank you for coming on. I really appreciate it. You and I had the chance to meet a couple of weeks ago, and I asked you if you would come on the show, and you graciously agreed. So I'm very excited to have you on and be doing this interview.
Yeah, thank you. I've been traveling everywhere, man. So it was good that we connected. And it's interesting. Donald Trump had such success doing lots of podcasts. I mean,
Hmm.
Rogan podcast and some of the huge ones with millions of people watching. But I've noticed that a lot of the other candidates do not want to do podcasts because
Yeah.
you never know what questions you might get. And I figure I just got to take the risk and talk to as many people as I possibly can. And your podcast seems to be growing and becoming more and more successful. So I'm hoping I can help you with that. You can help me
Yeah.
reach good folks.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. So take me back to the beginning. Where did your interest in politics begin, and how did you come to the decision to run for lieutenant governor?
Yeah, I grew up around politics. My dad was the kind of grassroots activist. He was eventually worked his way up to be the chairperson of the third congressional district, which is now kind of the seventh. The districts
The
change every day.
redistricting. Yeah.
Yeah, he was a big supporter of Dick Obenchain when he was running for the United States Senate, and uh, Dick Obenchain got the nomination and then died in a plane crash. So John Warner became the nominee, who then became the longtime senator from Virginia. My father supported Tom Bliley when he was the mayor of Richmond and ran for Congress. And then, he started out in the minority in the U.S. House of Representatives and became the chairman of the Powerful Commerce Committee up there.
Yeah.
And then Dad got a chance to run for House of Delegates to represent Henrico County, where he served for 18 years, which meant I was a voluntold worker for 9 elections for my father. And so I grew up in a political family, and I interned in the House of Representatives. I was a page in the Virginia General Assembly back when I was about 13, 14 years old. We went to the inaugurations
Mhm.
for President Reagan and President Bush, and I developed an interest in this. And then when I went to school, I left because Dad was in the legislature, and I didn't want to be the son of a politician in Virginia. I kind of wanted to do my own thing,
Sure.
which probably was a smart idea. You don't
Yeah.
same, you don't build the same network of friends in state. So that's the only reason. If I wanted to go into politics, maybe I should have stayed in Virginia. But at the time, I felt like I needed to be my own man and go away where no one knew me. And I successfully achieved that by going to Baylor University in Waco, Texas. I studied political science. I worked on a bunch of campaigns in Central Texas. Different people who were running for Congress, and that was an interesting experience to see the difference in the way things were handled in Texas. Then I got an opportunity to work for President Reagan
Mhm.
after he left the White House, and so I moved up my graduation and moved to Los Angeles, and I was President Reagan's last intern and press assistant,
Mhm.
and it was great. I got to travel with him, and I went to the Reagan home every evening. He and
Wow.
Mrs. Reagan were so nice to me, and I really got amazing experiences with Margaret Thatcher and the Prime Minister of Canada, Brian Mulroney, and everybody would come to the office to meet President Reagan. It was a great year. He started to show more severe signs of Alzheimer's at the end of 1993. So I left to go back to Texas to be a TV reporter, and I was able to cover politics there, and then came back to Richmond. And so I've kind of always interviewed political people. And in my last job as the host of the radio program in Richmond, uh, I did a lot of commentary on politics, as you can imagine. The Rush Limbaugh station was where I was. But what made me decide to quit that job and run for lieutenant governor? My frustration with the timidity and some of the, I think, cowardice when it comes to confronting the leftist agenda in Virginia. I mean, I really think we're teetering on becoming California East without the Malibu beach. And that's dangerous for our businesses and for our citizens. I think the craziest social justice ideas are out there, defunding the police. Um, the trans issue where you've got biological boys competing against biological girls in sports. I think that's outrageous. Just somebody's got to be bolder than we have been to say that these things are wrong and that we can have a fair and just and peaceful and prosperous society that everybody gets to participate in. But the way the Democrats are going about it is not strengthening the society. I think it's weakening the society. And I looked around, like, who's going to run?
Mhm.
And all the normal people who might have run said, "Oh, I'm scared too. Donald Trump might win. Donald Trump might lose." And I was like, guys, we got to save Virginia. You know,
Mhm.
whatever happens with the federal election, somebody needs to step up and save the Commonwealth. And I'm kind of uniquely positioned with the background that I've had, being a
Mhm.
businessman overseas, that I think I can step in and do that. And I'm pretty good at reaching out to
Communicating.
people who aren't a part of the Republican Party and trying to bring them in. And that's the challenge for me for the next 3 months.
Mhm. Certainly.
Long
Yeah.
answer, I'm sorry, but that's why
No,
podcast is good, right? You get
no, it was great.
well,
You had mentioned your father's 18-year career in the House. What does it mean for you to be able to continue his legacy in a way in public office?
let's pray that I can pull this off and get elected. Right before he died, he said, "Would you consider running for something?" I said, "Well, Dad, I'd consider it. I just
Mhm.
kind of never thought that it would work out." And,
Mhm.
the difference between the culture of 2025 in Virginia and the culture in, let's say, 2006, I think is pretty significant. The people of Virginia voted for a gay marriage ban in 2006. I think there was kind of palpable hostility on some of the issues that, whether I want to be involved in them or not, I am involved in them. And I think people have become much more open to the idea of a solid, responsible, hardworking person with my background being given these types of opportunities, or maybe I should say, earning these
Mhm.
types of opportunities than they would have been 20 years ago. But we're about to find out whether that's palatable or not. One thing I can say is I'm going to work really hard every single day between now and the election to try to show folks that I'm serious about this, that I'm willing to put in the hard work, I'm willing to listen to other people, and I don't take anything for granted. I'm going to try to earn every vote between now and November 4th.
That's the way you got to do it. On that note, you faced some controversy early on in your campaign that has kind of slowed down your momentum. How are you and your team working to regain that momentum in the months leading up to the election?
Yeah, well, the first thing was to correct the record because the lies that were perpetuated, and I'm sorry they got to the governor's office, and um, it certainly got a lot of attention that was unwarranted and wrong, and it did a lot of damage. And
Mhm.
unfortunately, as a news person, I've seen this kind of thing happen before, and some of the advisors that were around me like, "Oh gosh, you shouldn't talk about this publicly." Heck no. I In my personal life and in my professional life, people expect me to take things head on, and I did. And we hired a forensic analyst to prove that the stupid allegations that were made against me were false. And I know where they came from, and I'll settle that score some other time because I've got to focus on winning. But there's been a group of people that conspired behind the scenes to deliberately do damage to me. They told me in advance that's what they were going to do. They told me we are going to ruin your life and you will never be able to work in America again, which is
Mhm.
kind of an overreach. And
Yeah.
so I knew something was coming. It's like someone says they're going to kill you and you're looking around trying to figure out
Where
where
it's coming
where
from. Yeah.
um, it's weird though. I'm glad I didn't listen to the people who told me to just put out a press release. I'm glad that I got in front of the public and the media and spoke directly about this because I think, as awful as that was, it shows the difference between people who hide and are timid and scared and put out a press release and just hope something will go away. And the way I live my life, which is you're going to say something, you're going to say it right to my face,
Mhm.
and I will respond directly, and there will be no question about where I stand. And
Mhm.
as ugly as that was, I think even the people who didn't really like me before that kind of appreciated it.
Yeah,
And I,
earn some respect.
yeah, I think so. And I hope
Yeah.
that I've earned their respect by working so hard to fix everything since then. I mean, I'm
Mhm.
not a perfect person, so don't take it the wrong way. I'm not acting like I'm Mr. I'm not trying to be a priest, and I'm not trying to be holier than thou to anyone. But I'm not going to be mistreated, and I don't care whether it's the governor or whether it's the dog catcher. I will not tolerate it, and I won't let other people be treated badly either. And I hope that folks want a leader like that in this position.
You've briefly spoken about combating some of the democratic or liberal policies that your opponents are pushing, but Virginia's gubernatorial election is a split ticket election, so you could end up serving alongside Jay Jones or Abigail Spanberger. How do you plan on collaborating with them if that happens, and how does your childcare plan fit into that?
Yeah. Well, I'm supporting the whole ticket, and I'm
Yeah,
really
sure.
prayerful that Republicans and independents, and even some people who have become uneasy with the Democrat policies, and there are a lot of them out there in Virginia, especially, who kind of going, well, now, wait a minute, the trans stuff and you know, the men in women's bathrooms, that's just too much for me. I think there are a lot of people like that. So I'm hoping that we will win them over this year to kind of stop the insanity. But
Mhm.
to your point, it is correct. We all three run individual races. The voters of Virginia will pick one person. You don't go in as a ticket. So, my entire life, imagine me. I'm 54 years old. For the last 30 plus years, I have had to navigate a very difficult life,
Mhm.
quite frankly, as a gay Republican,
Sure.
between some liberals who hate me because they see me as a traitor, some liberals who are okay with me, some Republicans who love me, some Republicans who hate me. I try to find common ground with people, and I try to find the place. We may disagree on 10 things, but is there an 11th or 12th thing where we can come together and fix this? And I don't know if you've seen on social media, whenever I run into one of the Democrats who's running, I always stop what I'm doing and go over and speak.
Mhm.
That seems like, a couple of people said, oh, wow, that's a nice little gimmick. No, it's not a gimmick. That's the way Virginians used to treat each other,
Mhm.
Republican and Democrat alike. I'm not saying everybody got along and loved each other, but there was a certain sportsmanship or
Sure.
um,
Mutual respect.
mutual respect. That's right, and I'm trying to model that. Now, don't get. I'm not going to pull any punches when I think something is
Mhm.
stupid. I'm going to call it out, and, and I'm going to be tough on my opponent, Ghazala Hashmi, and call her out for, I think, the really bad decisions that she has made. But I'm going to try where I can to find those points of commonality. And if I'm sent to the Capitol with whoever is in the governor's mansion or whoever is attorney general, the people of Virginia have my word that I'm going to attempt to make it a successful relationship, not for me and not for the politicians, but for the voters.
Oh, yeah, all of Virginia. And how does your childcare plan fit into this framework?
Yeah, well, I thought it was interesting that Congresswoman Spanberger came out and started talking about childcare as one of the first things she wanted to discuss. Because I have heard that concern from a lot of people as I've
Yeah.
traveled this. Her proposal is very government heavy, government centric. Let's take tax money, let's create a fund, let's redistribute the tax money. That is what Democrats typically do if they discover a problem that people are concerned about. So it's a real issue. My plan is a much more conservative plan where I say, all right, if you need childcare, you've got a kid who's in that age range, let's come up with tax credits for you. And then people say, well, John, there's no childcare available. You're right. Why? Because we've overregulated it to the point where you can't you can't find childcare because nobody can find the insurance, nobody can go through the legal process, nobody can get the inspections and the licensing. When I was growing up, which wasn't that long ago, the 70s, early 80s, the lady down the street kept 4 or 5 kids in her
Yeah.
house for the hours that they weren't at school, or while the mom was working or the dad was working. That was the way it
Yeah.
happened. And of course, I acknowledge there were issues that popped up where a child was neglected or a child was abused. We don't want that to happen. We want to make sure kids are safe. But I think we've gone too far to the extreme where it's almost impossible to offer these services in a local way, which is the best way, where the kids are in the neighborhood. And so we need to recalibrate that. And instead of bringing government into the process, I'm thinking we need to push government out of the process,
Mm.
at least to a certain extent, and kind of free this up a little bit with the churches and some of the groups that traditionally offered childcare but had been kind of priced out of it. Let's bring them back in.
Yeah. At least where I live in Southwest Virginia, we have a number of churches that provide childcare, some home-based childcare centers who are oftentimes faith-based. So that's a pretty common thing around here, and I'm sure tax credits would help those operations for sure.
Yeah. And
Um,
as soon as we talk about that, there'll be some Democrats who say, well, I don't like the idea of any tax money being siphoned off for anybody who is a person of faith. And, I reject that. I think if you are a church and one of the ministries, if you will, or one of the programs you're going to offer for your parishioners and for the community is to offer childcare, the fact that you're a church shouldn't be a disqualifier. In fact, I find that to be discriminatory. And
mm,
there's attitude that I've discovered, and I think it's been laid out for the last decade, where Democrats feel like because you have announced that you are a person of faith or you're affiliated with the church, that somehow that justifies you being ostracized in society. And I think you got to have somebody like me who's going to stand up and say, no, that's impractical, and it's against the concept of freedom of religion in
mm,
America. And in a in a real sense, most of the people I know, regardless of where they are on the political spectrum, have some affiliation with the church. The church is a wonderful opportunity for us to not depend on government, but to depend on voluntary service and
mm.
um, help
Community.
community help
Yeah.
for citizens that's not funded by some bureaucrat in Richmond or Washington. And let's be honest, they haven't done that great a job.
Yeah. One of the things that I'm really excited about is you've challenged Senator Hashmi to a series of debates across the state. She's yet to accept the challenge, but two of the locations that you had challenged her in were in Southwest Virginia, and that's where I live, so it's particularly important to me. Can you talk a little bit about how you aim to represent the citizens of Southwest Virginia and what you'll do for us?
Oh, sure. Well, let me start with the debates. That was very deliberate on my part, and it's an
Mhm.
ambitious plan. But I think the job of lieutenant governor is especially important this year. Some people blow it off like, it doesn't really matter.
Mhm.
You're kind of the understudy for the governor if the governor dies or something. No, in this case, the state senate, at least for the next 2 years, is so closely divided, 21-19,
Yeah.
that it is very likely that whoever is the lieutenant governor, and I hope it'll be me, will be breaking some very critical tie votes. And that means advancing ideas or stopping bad ideas. And this has a potency that you don't normally see. So I think it's only fair that the people of Virginia get to see us discuss these issues. I'm going to ask Ghazala Hashmi some very tough questions, like why did you march with the pro-Hamas Palestinian crowd in Richmond soon after October 7th? Does that seem responsible to you after there's a mass slaughter to go out and march in the street with these people? You're a sitting state senator. Every time I see her, instead of debating on the floor of the Senate in a reasonable way, she's got a big bullhorn and she's screaming about how much she hates Donald Trump. I don't like that. I don't think that's good leadership. Now, maybe she'll be able to explain it in a public setting where people will understand her. I doubt it. And she has been the person who's been on the education committee pushing these radical trans ideas, calling moms birthing persons, which is just so repulsive and offensive.
Mm,
I think she needs to answer that. And I'm sure some people have questions for me. I'm happy to talk about it. And one of the things I don't want to have happen is to have one debate that nobody really watches, that's 1 week before the election in November, and all these
mm.
people, a million people have voted before we even get to
Yeah,
November,
early voting.
early voting. So
Mm,
the goal was to have 10 debates, and we could put them in different regions of the state. There are issues that are significant and important in Southwest that might not have the same relevance to
mm.
me and my people in Richmond, or to Virginia Beach and the folks in Virginia Beach. And Northern Virginia is a whole nother world.
Yeah.
Uh, so my hope was that we could get above the 50,000-foot level, and we could tailor the questions from people like you and reporters regionally, and really focus on those issues. And I know from my frequent trips to Southwest Virginia, I think I'm gonna be out there this weekend.
Okay.
I think we've worked it out. The flooding has been so bad,
Yeah.
Daint and some other areas surrounding that. I didn't want to like rush out and look like, hey, here I am. Well, why are you here? It's not like
So,
I can bring the National Guard and I have no money to offer. But we have been working with a lot of the women's groups here in Richmond to collect the buckets and the mops and the brooms and some paper supplies that, at least I've been told, are in short supply in Southwest. And I think we may have gotten to a critical mass where it would be worth coming out and trying to get those to some of the people who were involved in the cleanup. I'm not sure, but
yeah.
that was my intention. And I did that a year ago when I had the radio station.
Yeah.
And of course, it was pretty effective with the big radio station. A lot of people came and brought winter coats because the winter was coming
Mm,
with the last
yeah.
big flood. But yeah, there are a lot of issues that Southwest is dealing with related to the previous flood, this flash flooding that has occurred. Of course, there are the long running issues of trying to bring new industry
Mhm.
to the region. I will tell you, if you're in Southwest, you want to make sure that there are Republicans in the Capitol, because the Democrats are proposing so many things that will crush the ability of the new governor, whoever that is, to bring business to Virginia. The first one is right to work. And Tennessee, of course, has right to work. We do too. And we're right now the northernmost state with right to work. So Governor Youngkin or Governor Allen, Governor Gilmore, Bob McDonnell, all these governors have gone out, and their number one thing for industry has been, you can have a solid, stable worker base that won't be unionized, constantly threatening to go on strike, constantly renegotiating contracts. You won't have the union boss sitting at a desk right next to your CEO. You can do business in Virginia. And some workers may join a union, but the rest of the workers don't have to. That's the key thing. You don't have to do it. You're not forced to join the union. These Democrats have promised that they're going to get rid of the right to work. So everybody in the state is going to have to join a union if there's a union, just to keep your job. And that means they're going to send money to the unions. And I hate to tell everybody the dirty little secret, that money's going to go right back to the Democrat Party. It ain't going to go to me. It ain't going to go to the Republicans. So there's a reason that the Democrats are so motivated. It is not to help the workers and keep them safe and make sure they're paid good money. It is to consolidate political power. And if that happens, I hate this, the jobs that we could have recruited, they're going to Tennessee.
Mm,
And they're going to North Carolina, and they're going to South Carolina, they're going to Florida and Texas. And here's the real problem. This is a bigger issue that I can't tackle alone, but we're going to have to address it. Virginia's tax policies stink.
mm.
And when a lot of CEOs and high earners who can create jobs look at no income tax in some of our neighboring states versus paying an income tax here, when they look at the taxes on personal property, which never go away,
Mhm.
I'm just telling you, I was the communications director at the United States Chamber of Commerce. there are a lot of companies and just business people who are like, to heck with that. I'm not going to do it. I'm going to Tennessee, going to North Carolina or South Carolina, or they just pull up and go right to Florida or Texas. And if we put Democrats in there, mark my words, this time next year, right to work will be gone, and you will begin to see an atrophy in the economic ecosystem that's been so good for most of Virginia and Southwest Virginia, which, it's not anybody's fault. It's just the geography, not being close to a major
Rivers.
city like
Yeah.
DC or Richmond or Virginia Beach. It's going to be even worse. It's going to be even more difficult to bring these businesses. My dad grew up in Emporia, that's South Side, right?
Mm,
And they just lost 450 jobs because Georgia
yeah.
Pacific shut down the plant that manufactures with wood products. I don't know how we get those jobs back
Yeah.
or find
Sorry.
a replacement if we lose right to work. I can go out as lieutenant governor and try to be an ambassador for entrepreneurship and an ambassador for business. I'm good at that. That's something that I think I will be able to bring to this job. But if we lose right to work, it's nice to be able to tell everybody you're close to the beach and close to the mountains, and you know, and you can go for the weekend up to DC. That's great, but that's not going to get businesses to invest, $1 billion,
Mm,
$500 million in building a factory when they can do it 20 miles across the state line in Tennessee and not have to worry about the unions. So, you know, folks in Southwest seem to understand that, and it's good, solid Trump country, and you've got a lot of Republicans
yeah.
who've been sent to. So I may be preaching to the choir, but I want to articulate it so that everybody understands what's on the line. It's not just about Winsome Sears or John Reid or Jason Miyares and Abigail, and the personalities really don't matter. We're setting a precedent that could impact the ability of the state to provide jobs for individuals for decades to come if we mess this up. And I can't let that happen.
Yeah. I've got one more question before I hit the rapid fire questions.
Oh, okay.
Um, and because we're running on time here, or I have two more questions actually. I've noticed a lot of the Democratic ticket has been united at various events, like campaign events, the bus tour that they did that received a lot of attention. But voters have really yet to see you, Lieutenant Governor Sears and Attorney General Miyares, as a unified front. Is that something that you guys are looking to change in the coming months, or are you kind of running your own independent campaigns?
Well, I got to give the Democrats credit. That bus tour was good.
Mhm.
They got out of it what they wanted. Got a lot of free publicity. We did a unity event. Everybody got to see us together. It's great. There are 8.5 million Virginians, and
Yeah,
as
there's a
you
lot.
know, Southwest, it's a big state. Driving 5, 6, 7 hours to get from one end to the other if you really
Yeah.
want to go from end to end. So I think that the calculus here is that we're not going to beat the Democrats dollar for dollar
Mm,
money. So you have three strong candidates who can get up and command a crowd and explain things. Does it make sense for us to all go here at the beginning of the campaign, at least, stop by stop by stop, and have everybody see all three of us, and then they're like, I've already seen those guys? Or is it smarter for us to split up and go to different places, see different people? That gives the folks in different towns three shots at
yeah.
seeing a different statewide candidate. I think strategically, um, it's probably smarter to split up and do that. The Democrat, I got to give them credit. They played their cards right because they've gotten a lot of attention out of the bus tour. But now they're traveling all over the state differently when they decide to work. I'm still waiting to see whether my opponent's actually going to do what I do, which is get up at 4 or 5 in the morning every morning and do interviews like this, and then get in the car and drive 2 or 3 hours and go speak to a group, and then go speak to another group, and then come home at midnight, sleep for 4 or 5 hours, and get up and do it again. And I've
Do
been
it
doing
again.
January 27th. And my intention is no days off between now and November 4th. Every day I'm grinding. I'm going to show people that I want your vote, and I'm going to earn your vote. And my ticket mates, they're working hard too.
Yeah. Certainly. And then my last question before the rapid fire questions are, you were the first openly gay man to run for state office. That's a big deal. You're also a Republican, which is a little bit odd for some. What does it mean for you to be a role model or an inspiration for other openly gay Republicans across the Commonwealth who want to get involved, but maybe feel afraid to?
Well, there are a lot of people kind of in my situation who have done really good work and are conservative, responsible people. Rick Grinnell, the president has
Mm,
appointed Rick as he was ambassador to Germany. Now he's a special envoy solving some of the biggest problems with communist countries, running the Kennedy Center, too. I mean, this guy gets everything. Scott Bessent, who's the Treasury Secretary, I think is doing an amazing job, especially with his participation in negotiating these trade deals with foreign countries. And he's been one of the most outspoken supporters of President Trump. And I think he is really bringing new people into the party. And that's one of the reasons that I thought it was time for me to run is
yeah.
the Republican Party will only be victorious if we bring new people in. And there are a lot of people who decided that they didn't want to have anything to do with this because I think erroneously they thought we were racist and they thought we were bigots and they thought we were xenophobes who don't like anything different. Look, anybody can try that stuff on me. I've been to 113 countries around the world. I've lived overseas. I'm pretty well traveled.
Yeah.
I am here to show that you can be a Christian. I'm not saying I'm a perfect Christian, but my faith is very important to me. That I can be a solid, stable conservative talking about the importance of family. One of the reasons that I supported gay marriage 20 years ago was that I do believe, like so many evangelical Christians do, that family is the fundamental building block of society. It's important to have two people together so you're not dependent on the government. You can look out for your own family and take care of the structure of the family. Now, is that necessarily match up perfectly to the biblical understanding? I understand there'll be people who are distressed by that. But here's what I tell them. I'm not running to be the associate pastor of your church. I'm running to be the lieutenant governor of Virginia. You probably wouldn't make me associate pastor of your church, and that's okay. I need to protect everyone's rights. And if you're an evangelical, Bible believing Christian, I respect you. I grew up with you. I have no hostility to you. I'm going to make sure in every way that I can that you have the right to run your church as you see fit, to preach what you see fit, to associate with people who agree with you. You don't have to officiate at a gay marriage if you don't want to. I mean, it may hurt my feelings a little bit, but my feelings don't count. Freedom and respect for liberty is what counts in America. And in me, you have someone who has proven that over and over again, that I will stand up for everyone's rights. My own, yes, but also other people who may or may not agree with me. And I think that's important. You will not hear that from the Democrats. They want you to bow down and do what they say. If you disagree with them, you're on the bad list. I don't operate that way. I understand that people have different beliefs than I do, and I respect them, and I want to enable them to live as they see fit in Virginia. I hope that will count as people evaluate who they want to be making these decisions.
So now I have four rapid fire questions for you.
Okay.
Um, what makes Virginia special to you?
Well, it's my home state, so I've
Yeah.
got an affinity for the place of my birth and where I
Mhm.
was raised. I think that this great American experiment that I do think is divinely inspired started here in Virginia, and that means that we have to protect this this locality and offer it up as a beacon of hope for other parts of the country and people around the world who are
Mhm.
looking to us to continue to lead 400 years after Jamestown.
Yeah. What's one thing that you admire about your opponent, Senator Hashmi?
Well, let's think about that. She is very polite,
Mm,
and she does not have to be. So I've only interacted with her personally one time, but I do think she's polite, and um, I'm appreciative of that because there's no guarantee that in politics, that's what you'll encounter. It's still early, but I hope to return that politeness. Like I say, I'm not going to sugarcoat the differences in the issues, and there are a lot of them. But I have always appreciated polite people who disagreed, doing so in an honorable way.
Yeah, definitely. Your campaign team obviously works very hard. I've been interacting with them all week in preparation for this interview. I wanted to give you a chance to say some words about them and how much you appreciate them.
Oh, listen, I hope I say that to them every day because
Yeah,
we're all kind of running ragged, and I don't have
yeah,
tons of money, so it's a very small team that's competing against loads of Democrat volunteers and paid operatives. Our guys have worked on it ranges from everything from people who've worked on 30 or 40 campaigns all across the country who bring that type of technical expertise to grassroots people who are working for nothing. I
mm,
mean, maybe I get to take them to dinner if we have time for dinner, if we're out on a trip. And, they are just passionate. I don't know that it's so much about me, but about our issues and the recognition that there's a lot on the line here. And I do think they're appreciative of anybody who's willing to step up and run as a candidate because, gosh, I'll tell you, it's a lot harder and a lot more expensive and a lot more emotionally draining than even I thought it was.
yeah.
And I saw it up close for a long time.
And then how can voters get in contact with you and learn more about you if they're interested?
Yep, it's the website is the first place to go. It's johnreid4virginia.com, JohnReid, all spelled out, forvirginia.com, johnreid4virginia.com. You'll find my bio there. I've really been blessed to have a lot of wonderful experiences and jobs in the course of my life, from President Reagan to climbing Mount Kilimanjaro. And I mean, I've really been very blessed. And so you can read more about how I came to this point. And you'll see some policy positions that I have written that I hope will give conservatives confidence that I am a good spokesperson and truly believe in the things that the common values that we share. Another thing that I would encourage people to do is go to Facebook, John Reid for Lieutenant Governor. I'm also on Twitter, John Reid for VA. But I'm trying to document everywhere I go and everything
Mm,
I do so that if you go, well, wait a minute, this guy says he's working hard. Is that true? I hope if you check out Facebook, I think you'll say, yeah, I mean, I'm all over the state. I'm putting
yeah.
in the miles on the road and talking to people. So those are two or three places that I think you can keep up with us, and you can direct message us. And I'm a little snowed under with emails, but I'm trying to respond.
Well, well, thank you, Mr. Reed. I really appreciate you giving me your time today, and it was an honor to speak with you.
Oh, thank you for the invitation. I hope I'll get to see you again in person really soon.